A couple months ago, I was actually working on a video for Oblitas Casa, but as I started working on it, like two other YouTubers decided to make Oblitas Casa videos, and I didn't want to see myself as a bandwagon, so I ended up postponing it. If that one crab-based YouTuber finally releases his long-awaited video on this movie while I'm making this one, I'm gonna flip. Whenever I try to review anything, I always try to separate objective and subjective aspects of it. Things can be objectively good and just not suit your interests, or maybe something is pretty terrible, but you can't help but love it. It's simple as that. People can have opinions. But there is one piece of media that I can't stand the general consensus of. One, I believe, where my opinion is right and no one else is able to disagree with me. Why everybody thinks the way they do about this movie is absolutely beyond me. And I know I'm not wrong for disagreeing with everyone when I say that Avatar 2 is a terrible movie. On a completely unrelated note, Chicken Little is a terrible movie. Here's why I love it. Let's turn back the clock. Early 2000s Disney was interesting. After the Disney Renaissance and the success of the technologically advanced Pixar movies at the time, Disney seemed to jump back into another experimental phase, trying out new things to see what works, or more accurately, what doesn't. They did this a while back when the studio first was founded, after Walt Disney died, and now in the early 2000s. And in some cases, you can make an argument for the World War II era movies as well. These little experimental periods lead to some banger cult classics. The Emperor's New Groove, Atlantis the Lost Empire, Meet the Robinsons, and my beloved Treasure Planet. But experiments don't always work, leaving us with Home on the Range, Bolt, Brother Bear, and... does Dinosaur count as a movie? And in 2005, we got Chicken Little, the first entirely CGI animated movie from Walt Disney Studios. And considering how much Disney loves to shove nostalgia on our faces, you'd think they would acknowledge the movie exists, right? Yeah, Disney likes to pretend this movie never happened. And a lot of older and worse movies have gotten nods from the company. Even Song of the Freaking South got a ride. But why is this movie so bad? I don't know. The movie opens up 4 separate times.
How about once upon a time? How many times have you heard that to begin a story? Let's do something else. No, I don't think so. It sounds familiar, doesn't it to you? Oh, no, not the book. How many have seen opening the book before? Why don't I just go back to the day things took a turn for the worst?
Yeah, the movie, like the writers, doesn't really know what kind of story it wants to tell. Sometimes it wants to be Shrek and fails, sometimes it wants to be a traditional Disney movie and fails, and just kind of cuts to the next thing. So, the town is in panic as Chicken Little is ringing the bell, and the sequence highlights a lot of problems the movie has going forward. Most notably, the gags. Remember when I said this movie tries to be Shrek and fails? Yeah, half the jokes are either just references to other media or...
I guess only girls are good at honest communication and sensitivity.
Meta, to put it simply. There are way too many movie references and pop songs. It just feels so cringe, and jokes about the real world that just feel like cringe. They show up out of nowhere, and I would say they ruin the emotional moments, but this movie doesn't really have them, just attempts at them. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, Chicken Little starts ringing the bell, telling everyone to run because the sky is falling. He tries to explain as hit by an acorn, convincing the town that he's just crazy. Cut forward a whole year. And look here, he's still being ridiculed by the whole town. Yep, there has been merchandising and a movie in the production about this one child doing something stupid. I mean, I guess this was before TikTok, so people didn't move on as quickly, but still. Now, it's normal for kids to tease, but kids aren't making films and decorative plates, and definitely not a year after the fact. Every adult in the movie is a man-child, holding a literal child to one little slip, and making sure he never lives it down. And the worst part is, his dad is all for it. He doesn't stand up, say I'm sorry you feel this way, call out the other adults for their behavior. He just lets it happen and acts like this child is just something he has to take care of now. This is just sad. And I have to wonder who thought that this, of all things, would be how normal adults act. I mean, I once pulled a fire alarm out on accident at a church, and everyone forgot about that the next day, I assume. This kid needs help, and he's not getting it from the wrong place. he's just not getting it, period. So his dad drops him off at the bus stop, and arguably the best point of the movie begins. Guys, I'm gonna be blunt. Bare Naked Ladies is my favorite band. One Little Slip is an absolute banger. You can say I only love this movie because it gives us a song that kind of just feels like a weaker Falling for the first time, and I wouldn't even argue. I love this song, and I listen to it daily. But strangely enough, this song actually has some of a story relevance. I can't play it for copyright reasons, and nobody has covered it. Guys, come on, this song is on par with All-Star. What are you doing? But I learned how to play it on my guitar, and shall demonstrate as such. If you don't want your ears to bleed, skip to this time frame. You have been warned. 3, 2, 1. It was a recipe for disaster. 4-course meal of no siree. It seemed that happily ever after was happy everyone was after me. It was a cup of good intentions, a tablespoon of one big mess, dash of overreaction. I assume you know the rest. One little slip, one little slip was a fusion of confusion with a few confounding things. I got a feeling in this town I'll never live till I live down the one mistake that seems to follow me around. But they'll forget about the sky when they all realize the sky's about to try and learn to fly or hit the ground. Wait, that line's about One Little Slip, similar to All-Star for Shrek, does a pretty solid job at summarizing Chicken's character. He's a guy who made one little mistake, one backed with good intentions. He wasn't malicious, he was just confused. Had the sky been falling, he would have been a hero. But now he feels like he's the only one in town that made such a mistake. He can't really be more than what the town lets him. So he's gonna try and do something amazing so everyone will forget. Or he'll commit Sudoku. This song really is a banger. It's just partnered with the worst possible scene. This whole scene of him getting to school doesn't revolve around the town out to get him. It shows how he's short and resourceful. He runs through town using an array of different methods to get around obstacles he encounters because of his height. I think this is fun to watch and really good character exposition showing just how smart Chicken is, but there are 3 problems. 1, why is Chicken in his underwear a bad thing? Half the cast don't wear pants. 2, it doesn't fit the song. You could take this scene out of context, mute the godsend performance of Ed Robertson, and you wouldn't be able to get the same meaning out of it. Whereas something like Shrek sends the same message with or without the song. And 3, there is exactly one, count 'em, one scene where this resourcefulness comes back to play in any sort of important role. Everything else Chicken does in the movie is something that any other character could do. Chicken is by no means a bad protagonist, he's just not too interesting outside of this one scene. But Disney has made way more unlikable protagonists. He could have just been given a bit more character outside of this killer scene and a killer song. I guess while we're on the subject of things that I liked, the animation, it hasn't aged well. I mean, the original Toy Story looks better, but it wasn't bad for 2005. Not gonna sugarcoat it, it looks like a GameCube game at times, but it does have certain nostalgic feel to it. You know, the same kind of feel from watching the original Toy Story or Bug's Life. The character designs are nothing to write home about, and some of them are straight up uncanny, but the environments, man, they look like they came straight from a children's storybook. The grass, the buildings, the sky, they all look like a typical children's picture book. I look at the world and feel like I'm 3 again, sitting on my grandma's lap reading Guess How Much I Love You or Snowman at Night. I always have to give props for making do with your limitations. And I think that this is just a detail that not enough people admire. Anyway, Chicken gets to school, and we see that the adults aren't just donks to him, they're kind of donks in general.
Shouldn't we review safety guidelines?
Sure. Hit the pig, kids.
I'm still not entirely on board, but good job for being consistent. This is also where we meet Chicken's only friends, and my gosh, they could have left Chicken all to himself, but no. Seeing that he does have a few friends who try to help him in a healthy way is comforting, that's what I wrote. It's only comforting because the rest of the town is still one big turd towards him, but still. Whenever Chicken is with them, I find myself liking them all okay. Don't get me wrong, they're all very one-dimensional, except for Fish. I think he transcends into the 6th dimension, but that doesn't mean they're bad. Well, one is bad. But Abby might be a better character than Chicken. I hate her model with a burning passion, but I think that's the point. Despite her appearance, she's incredibly sympathetic. And even when she thinks that it's not the best idea, she always helps out Chicken in any way she can. Runt is the polar opposite. His entire personality is pop songs and pop culture references. If you don't like early 2000s teenage girl pop, you're not gonna like this guy. And his cracking voice does nothing to help. But every facial expression this guy makes is hilarious. I refuse to believe the animators didn't know exactly what they were doing with him. And some of the best jokes in the movie do come from him. Fish Out of Water is a demigod and the best character in the movie. And not every other character is unlikable. When they're not picking on Chicken, some of the other townsfolk have their moments. Morkybine, Porcupine is probably the world's second to Giga Chad, right behind Dr. Livesey. I love Mayor Turkey Lurkey because of his vocal performance and Men in Black bodyguards. And of course Kirby, who we'll get to later. Anyway, Chicken has this plan to join a baseball team. If he can help win a game, then he can make everyone else forget about the whole Sky mistake and not be mad at him. Man, that would not fly today. And thus, one training montage later, we get to the final inning. The rest of the team is out, and the only one left is...
Chicken Little.
And despite everyone, including Giga Chad Light, telling him not to, he swings. And this scene is fun. Definitely one of the highlights of the movie. It has a few good laughs and barely any amount of pop culture jokes, man. And seeing Chicken finally get his moment makes you feel good for the guy. Like Napoleon dancing, just not nearly as good though. Now, I'm aware this movie is gaslighting me into thinking this is fun because everyone else is so mean for the rest of the movie. But I think this scene can still work on its own. This is less of everyone thinking Chicken can't do it because he's Chicken Little, but because he's a little chicken. You're telling me the Pipsqueak is going to win the game that Town hasn't won in 2 decades? So, yeah, while many of the good scenes are only good because the rest of the movie is so horrid, this isn't one of them. The next one, on the other hand, is...
I am the champion. I am the champion.
Chicken's dad, Buck Cluck, is so happy for his son, like all parents should be. He won the big game. But rewind the clock back a bit and think for a second. Buck discouraged Chicken from doing anything out in the open. He tells him to hide. He tells him to be ashamed of what he did, and he's still ashamed. He just stands by and lets everyone else torment this child. He doesn't try to comfort him in any way, shape, or form. Now, let's think for a second. Let's put ourselves in a situation. I'm not a parent, but let's say if you have a child who's in some kind of competition, be it baseball, academics, or Magic the Gathering, if they win, you should be proud of them. They worked hard and won. But if they lose, be proud of them for getting that far. They tried, and comfort them with their loss. You cannot convince me that in the scenario where Chicken would lose the game, Buck would be there for him. They'd go back to their regularly scheduled programming, hide away from the town's constant ridicule. Wait a minute, there was a Simpsons episode that put Bart in that exact situation, and he tried to commit Sudoku. The baseball scene can work considering the rest of the movie. This one cannot. And at the end of such, it seems like things are going to be okay. Oh, we're back to this. Chicken gets hit by a piece of the sky shaped like a stop sign. He's not crazy, but he can't show his dad because, get this, he might stop loving him. Wonder why. So he calls his friends and figures out it's some piece of camouflage technology. And remember 5 minutes ago when this was an underdog baseball movie? Yeah, well, move over, half-decent plot. It's alien time. So after some really bad jokes...
Pee, 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 pee. Could you stop saying that?
What? Pee?
Pee.
How about tinkle?
Piddle?
Whiz? Wee wee?
Okay, subject change.
We get this chase scene following Fish exploring the spaceship and running from the aliens. Aside from the aforementioned terrible humor and way too many cringe pop culture references, these scenes... No, these scenes are actually pretty bad. They are just the most generic alien scenes you can muster, tied together by really, really bad jokes. The lowest points being Runt referencing Alien or Runt calming himself down to the Bee Gees. But there are some high points, like Runt chewing on this corn or Runt beating up a vending machine, which might be the funniest scene in the whole movie. You see why I'm so polarized on this character? It all culminates in Chicken once again being resourceful and summoning the whole town to see that once again...
What are we looking for?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
He looks crazy. His friends can't help much for plot reasons, I guess, and it's up to Buck Cluck to defend his child against the angry mob. What do you think happens?
You gotta believe me this time.
No, son. I don't.
So yeah, Chicken was right in thinking his father wouldn't love him again after this. We're back to our regularly scheduled programming. The entire town hates him again, including his father. But then Kirby shows up, this little alien puffball. No, not that Kirby. Now he's stranded on Earth, and for some reason, fish can understand him. I'm telling you, this guy's a demigod. Then we get, quite possibly, the worst line from Runt.
Darth Vader's Luke's father?
And aliens begin invading, looking for Kirby. And hey, remember half an hour ago when this was a baseball movie? Well, now there's not even a half an hour left. Yeah, this movie is 90 minutes long and switches genres thrice in the span of such. But look, Chicken Little's right. And now Dad loves him. Yay. And now it's time for the two to have their quote-unquote closure. And we get this dumpster fire.
You're never there for me.
What?
You're never there for me. I mean, you were there when I won the big game, but not when I thought the sky fell. And not at the ball field, and certainly not now.
I didn't realize, son. I never meant to. The acorn, the sky, I mean the whole... You're right.
Not bad. He admits he never realized it, and he's sorry. Had he not gone to such a scream, this could have been more believable. Until...
But you need to know that I love you, no matter what. And I'm sorry, sorry if I ever made you feel like that was something you had to earn.
Unconditional is not even in the ballpark of what describes your love. He literally had to win your love in a ballpark. And now they're only communicating because it turned out Chicken was right. There's a scene in Invader Zim Enter the Florpus that does this infinitely better in a matter of seconds. Quick context, Dib is trying to prove to his dad that aliens exist. He goes through this whole thing believing any proof to be the result of a head injury. And we get this scene.
I'll prove everything to you! Just hang on! You'll be proud of me!
Son, you don't have to prove anything. I'm always proud of you.
The difference is, Dib doesn't done anything to earn his father's pride. Chicken has. And that's the problem. It really just sours the last 15 minutes because Buck won't stop apologizing to Chicken about not being there for him. And I feel if they had just cut out those two lines, it could have come off a little better. Anyway, Chicken and Buck team up to bring Kirby back to his parents. They do it in the most generic way possible, alongside one of the better Runt scenes.
I will survive! Hey!
And bada bing, bada boom, everything is fixed. I'll admit, I do think this ending is more clever than people give it credit for. Yes, it does explain a lot of things that in the literal last minute, but look closer and you'll find that it kind of ends where it starts. The aliens are apologizing for this huge misunderstanding, which is what Chicken was doing at the start. The only difference is that the townspeople are fine with this and accept their apology. On one hand, this is what makes the townspeople realize what turds they've been. On the other, this is what makes the town people realize what turds they've been. And the aliens fly off, and we see the movie that was being made. This looks like a better movie, and that was Chicken Little. Don't bother watching the credits, they don't exist. So you don't just make a movie this bad. How does it get to this? Bad budget? Bad creator? Well, it all started a long time ago in a studio far, far away. Mark Dindal and Randy Fulmer had just finished the whole other can of worms as The Emperor's New Groove. They had done the impossible and turned a movie with a horrible development cycle into peak cinema. and I'm sure the box office saw it that way.
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
So they began on something a little bit simpler, something of wholly their own, despite being based on a European fable. Henny Penny is the tale of a chicken that got hit by an acorn and went to tell the king that the sky was falling. Along the way, she gathers up a group of followers and is persuaded by a fox to take a shortcut through his burrow and... Whoa, that was much more graphic than I thought it would be. This actually wouldn't be the first time Disney adapted Henny Penny. There was actually an anti-Nazi animated short called Chicken Little and... Whoa. Okay. This new Chicken Little was to retain the basic story, save for the theoretical sky actually falling this time. Chicken Little, a paranoid chicken girl, heads to a summer camp to help her paranoia. But while there, she would uncover her camp counselor's secret plans to take over her hometown, and it was up to her to rally everyone to save her home, and this doesn't sound much better. It just kind of sounds like a different version of what we already got, and I would have liked to see this, but I don't think this would have saved the movie. Upon pitching the movie, the Disney president then, Michael Eisner, suggested a now infamous move to make the chicken a boy. This was the win over the young male audience. No boys wanted to see a movie about a girl chicken. They would later be proven wrong. And I don't hate this change. I think it could have gone either way, and I understand the motive. More changes would happen after David Stainton became the president of David Stainton became the president of Disney, who demanded they completely rewrite the story. And then that pigeon from Bolt showed up and gave his pitch.
Wait for it. Aliens. Oh, snap.
12 different people spent 2.5 years adding and removing scenes before eventually crumbling together the mess that was Chicken Little. That explains the extreme changes in themes the movie goes through. They wanted to make Henny Penny, and an underdog story, and an aliens movie, and Shrek. And they did them all in the worst ways. On release, the movie actually did fairly well, grossing over $300 million worldwide, but this was absolutely panned by critics. It was nominated for several awards, but the only one it managed to get was the Stinker's Worst Animated Feature. That is too funny. But this does bring up the fact that this movie tops many people's worst Disney animated movies list, if not being in the top 3 or so. To that I say,
Come on, folks.
this is not the worst movie that Disney has made. I know I like this more than I should, but even solely from an objective standpoint, saying it's the worst is a bit harsh. Have you seen Fun and Fancy Free? Have you seen Sword in the Stone? Have you seen Oliver and Company? Have you seen Ralph Breaks the Internet? Have you seen Dinosaur? I could keep going. There are a lot of movies I'd rather watch Chicken Little than, but I think I'll end that here. Chicken Little is the security breach of Disney movies. I'm aware of the irony in that statement. It's so bad, I can't help but love it. It would still have been nice to see that original concept or an overall better movie, but in the end, what's good in this movie, I like. And what's bad, I love to hate. Take that crab-themed YouTuber. Jokes aside, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed yourself here, you know what to do. I won't waste your time asking. My name is AJ Plays, and Enid is a really, really good song.